The Lord be with you. A teacher tells a story about a time she took a second grader to the library to help the child learn how to read. For whatever reason, when the child picked a book, as it turned out, it only had pictures, no words. So the teacher thought creatively and sat down with the child and said, "Why don't you identify the pictures for me?" She started, "That's a house," flipped a page. "That's a man. That's a boat. That's a top. That's a car." She turned to a picture of a hatchet and she said, "That's a hammer." Then she turned to the next page and there was a picture of a hammer. She looked back at the hatchet and then at the hammer. Several times, back and forth, she looked at the two pictures. Finally, she closed the book and said, "You know we're not supposed to be talking in the library." It's hard to admit when you're wrong, even if you're not a child. I need to begin with a confession of my own. I am not a big fan of confession. I am guessing that there are more than a few of you who are right there with me. Who actually enjoys admitting they are wrong, that they've made a mistake? Having to swallow their pride and eat a slice of humble pie? Who likes saying, "Yes, dear, you were right"? One of the truths of our lives is that we will sin. No matter how hard we strive to be righteous, to live Christ's holiness in our lives, we will miss the mark. We will sin. Confession is painful. It makes us vulnerable. It forces us to rely on another's mercy. It takes away our sense of being in control. Confession forces us to look in the mirror and take responsibility for the choices we have made or the actions we have taken. Even so, there is tremendous power in confession. Solomon tells us in the Proverbs that confession is the path to compassion. James tells us that confession leads to healing. The entire Bible tells us that confession frees us from the chains of guilt, from the chains of our pasts, the chains of mistakes and regrets, the chains of shame. With confession, there is power in knowing that your slate and mine, and that of every person who confesses, is wiped clean. Confession opens the floodgates of God's forgiving grace and cleansing blood. According to Warren Wiersbe, every form of life has its enemies. Insects have to watch out for hungry birds, and birds must keep an eye out for hungry cats and dogs. Even human beings have to dodge automobiles and fight off germs or viruses, as the case may be. Spiritual life has its enemies too, and one of them is sin. I am so gladdened by God's promise in 1 John chapter 1 verse 9. As long as we keep confessing, the Lord will keep cleansing. In his book, The Gospel for the Person Who Has Everything, Will Willimon tells of a young friend, age 4, who was asked on the occasion of his 5th birthday what kind of party he wanted to have. "I want everybody to be a king and queen," Clayton said. So he and his mother went to work, fashioning a score of silver crowns, cardboard and aluminum foil, purple robes, crepe paper, and royal scepters, sticks, painted gold. On the day of the party, as the guests arrived, they were each given a royal crown, a robe, and a scepter, and were thus dressed as a king or a queen. It was a royal sight, all kings and queens. Everyone had a wonderful time. They ate ice cream and cake. They had a procession up to the top of the block and back again. And then when it was all over, everyone knew it had to be a royal, wonderful day. That evening, as Clayton's mom tucked him into bed, she asked him what he wished for when he blew the candles out on his birthday cake. I wished, he said, that everyone in the whole wide world could be a king and a queen. God be praised for the gift of limitless forgiveness, for by it we are all royalty, kings and queens in the kingdom of God. On second thought, I have another confession to make. I love confession. Amen.